Welcome to Breaking Ties, Destination Divorce. This is your go-to source for practical advice and support while you go through the divorce process. Join us each weekday for a quick chat where we'll cover a variety of topics such as child custody, property division, and self-care. Together, we'll explore emotional, financial, and legal aspects of divorce and help you find the best path forward for you and your family. Here's your host and Certified Divorce Financial Analyst professional, Mike Fulkerson.
Hello, and welcome to this week's episode of Breaking Ties, Destination Divorce. I'm your host, Mike Fulkerson, and today we'll be discussing the issue of children when getting a divorce. Divorce is never an easy process, not even for adults, let alone it can be especially hard on children. So today we want to explore some of the challenges that children face when their parents get divorced, as well as some strategies for parents to help their children navigate this difficult time. Divorce can have a significant impact on a child's emotional well-being. Children may feel like they are losing a sense of stability and security in their lives. They could be confused, angry, sad, and worried about their future. And as a parent, it's important to recognize that children may experience these feelings and provide them with the support they need. Their feelings are valid. Let's keep that in mind. It's not that they shouldn't have these feelings or anything. It's that as a parent, we need to do a very good job of tuning into these feelings and helping them through the process as well. Now, one of the biggest challenges that children face when the divorce is taking place is a potential disruption of their daily routine. Kids love routine. They like the predictability. But when you look at upsetting that balance, it becomes difficult for them. They may have to move homes or change schools. It's extremely stressful. They also may have to adjust to living with only one parent or splitting their time between two households. These changes can be difficult for children to cope, especially if they feel like they have no control over what's happening. Parents can help their children through these changes by providing as much stability and routine as possible. This might mean creating a consistent schedule for when the child will be with each parent, or keeping the child in the same school. It's important for parents to communicate with their children about what's happening and listen to their concerns. Also, as a parent, we want to encourage our children to express their feelings about divorce. And children may be hesitant at first to talk about their emotions. There again, this whole process is new. They're still trying to figure out how to get through it. But it's important for parents to create a safe and supportive environment where children feel comfortable sharing their feelings. Parents can help by listening without judgment, validating their child's feelings, and providing emotional support. One of the other biggest challenges that we hope doesn't take place is potential conflict between parents. Children may feel caught in the middle of their parents' disagreements, which can be very, very distressing. It's important for parents to try to minimize conflict in front of their children and avoid putting them in the middle of their arguments or disputes. Parents can also seek out the help of a mediator or a counselor to help them communicate more effectively and reduce the conflict. And finally, it's important for parents to prioritize their children's well-being during and after a divorce. This means really you got to put their needs first. It's making decisions in their best interest, not yours. It's a matter of giving them the priority and space that they need. And when you put together a co-parenting plan, all of this needs to be discussed, and that plan should benefit the child. Wrapping up, divorce can be a very difficult time for children. I think that goes without saying. However, parents can take steps to help their children navigate this challenging time. Start with providing stability, minimizing conflict, encouraging children to express their feelings, and prioritizing them. Parents can help their child emerge from a divorce stronger and more resilient than ever. That's pretty heavy for an episode today. I hope you are doing well. Thank you for joining me on Breaking Ties, Destination Divorce. And just keep in mind that divorce is not the end of your story. It is the start of your next great chapter. And take care. Welcome to today's Breaking Ties Destination Divorce podcast. I'm your host, Mike Fulkerson, and we all know that divorce can be difficult and emotional and very challenging process for anyone to go through. And not to mention, it's likely to be financially stressful. So in today's podcast, we will discuss the role of a financial advisor in a divorce and how they can assist in making the process smoother. Now, to get going, we're going to start with kind of the basics of what role a financial advisor can play in a divorce. And that role is to help the client navigate the financial aspects of the process. There is, of course, a lot of financials that go into the divorce process as you're dividing up property and you're looking at retirements and you're looking at budgets. And we're going to need to analyze those assets and debts if they are there and help get everyone on track, whether it's developing a budget or determining the financial implications of a different settlement agreement option. Now, the first thing we're really going to end up doing is gathering all the necessary financial information. And this is going to tie into the financial affidavit aspect of the legal process. So we're going to have to get this together no matter what. And it's going to include things like your income, expenses, assets, and debts. And so we're going to then look at that to determine the financial situation of the marriage. Now, once we have a clearer picture of the finances, we can then start to develop budgets for each person because they're going to be living independently. Then you are going to have to be in charge of all of your information. Now, this budget will take into account current expenses as well as future expenses, things like child support and spousal maintenance payments. So it's going to take into account some of that after the divorce's final numbers. Now, we'll also review settlement options that are being proposed. And this could include dividing assets, determining child support payments, and deciding on spousal maintenance. The financial advisor would analyze and look at the implications of each option and help the client understand the long-term impact of the decision that could be made. Now, helping to reduce stress in this very difficult time is one of the biggest ways a financial advisor can help. And you do this by being realistic and you look at the numbers for what they are. And you look at, will I be okay when this is finished? And what do those numbers look like? So by understanding the current financial situation and creating a plan for the future, clients are able then to feel more in control and less stressed about their finances. Another way a financial advisor can reduce financial stress of a divorce is by helping their clients understand their options. So as the client's going through this divorce process, sometimes it's hard for them to make clear decisions and choices. And so they need a sounding board. They need someone to help them come to the right conclusions for themselves. So by providing clients with the information they need, then the client can make informed decisions that'll benefit them in the long term. Now, we're going to want to avoid common mistakes that people going through a divorce make when it comes to their finances. One is not fully understanding their financial situation. Clients may not be aware of all the assets and debts they actually have, and this can lead to a settlement that is not in their best interest. It's important to get this right, because once the settlement is done and final, that's it. It's over. There's no redoing it. There's no making adjustments or changes to the settlement agreement. Another mistake is not considering the long-term financial impact of those settlement options. It would be very easy for a client just to be focused on a quick settlement. They just want to get done with the process. They don't want to take a long time, but they also may not realize the long-term financial implications of that choice. If you want to rush through it, that's great. However, a lot of times you're going to make choices that don't necessarily benefit you in the long run. So it's important for clients to work with a financial advisor who also has experience in divorce planning. Divorce is its own complex process. It's very challenging, and it does require, I shouldn't say require as much as it helps out greatly if you've been through the process and the advisor knows the process and has the expertise and knowledge in that process. By working with a financial advisor who has experience in this area, clients can be confident that they're getting the best advice for themselves. That's going to bring us to the end of today's episode. It's pretty heavy stuff. And I want to thank you for listening to Breaking Ties, Destination Divorce. Join us next time for another informative discussion. And as always, divorce is not the end of your story. It is the start of your next great chapter. All the best. Welcome to this episode of Breaking Ties, Destination Divorce. We will be discussing the topic of property division during divorce proceedings today. Divorce, as we know, is an emotional and challenging process. And dividing property can be one of the most complex and also difficult aspects of it. In this episode, we will be providing some useful information about the property division process that can help you navigate this difficult time. Firstly, it's important to understand that property division laws vary state by state. So you are likely going to want to consult with a local attorney who can advise you on the specific laws in your area. However, there are some general principles that apply to property division in most states that we're going to cover today. The first step in property division is to identify and classify the assets and liabilities of the marriage. Generally, assets and liabilities are classified as either marital or separate property. Marital property includes any property or debts acquired during the marriage, while separate property refers to assets and debts acquired prior to the marriage. Once all the assets and liabilities have been identified and classified, the next step is to value the marital property. This can be a complex process, particularly if there's assets such as businesses or investment portfolios involved. A professional appraiser may be needed to determine the value of some assets. Once the value of the marital property has been established, the court will then consider several factors in deciding how to divide the property. These factors may include the length of the marriage, the income and earning potential of each spouse, and the contribution of each spouse to the acquisition, preservation, or appreciation of the marital property. Now, we want to make a note that property division does not always mean a 50-50 split of assets. Rather, the court will seek to divide the property in a way that's equitable and fair, taking into account the specific circumstances of the case. In a divorce, 50-50 does not mean always equal. And I think that's one of the pieces that helps. If you can understand that, will make the property division piece go a little smoother. One option for property division is for the parties to negotiate a settlement agreement outside of court. This can be a less costly and less contentious way to divide property, particularly if the parties are able to work together amicably. However, it's still important to have an attorney review any settlement agreement before signing it, just to make sure your bases are covered. If the parties are unable to reach a settlement agreement, the court will make a decision on property division. It's important to understand that the court's decision is final and binding, so it's crucial to present a strong case and provide evidence to support your position, and it's no guarantee the property division will go the way you want it to go. Wrapping up, dividing property during divorce can be complex and challenging, but understanding the basic principles of property division can help you navigate the difficult time. Remember to consult with a local attorney to ensure that you're following the laws in your state and to provide you with the guidance and support you need throughout the divorce process. I want to thank you for listening to Breaking Ties, Destination Divorce. I hope the information has been helpful. However, should you have some questions, my contact information is located in the description. I'm always happy to help. And divorce is not the end of your story. It's the start of your next great chapter. All the best. Hello, and welcome to today's podcast, Breaking Ties, Destination Divorce. In this episode, we'll be discussing a topic that affects many couples going through a divorce. Who gets the house? Divorce is a complicated process. It's draining, and dividing property is one of the most challenging aspects. So, who gets the house? There is no one answer to this question, as it depends on a variety of factors. If a couple owns a house, it is considered marital property, and both parties have a right to an equitable share of the property. Equitable share means that the court will divide the property in a way that's fair and just, but not necessarily equal. This means that the division of the property will depend on specific circumstances of the couple and the court's assessment of what's fair and reasonable. And, the court's going to look at a variety of factors, such as the length of the marriage, contributions each spouse made to the marriage, and income and earning potential of each spouse, not to mention the needs of any children involved. So what's an example of how these factors might come into play when deciding who gets the house? Let's take a look. So say a couple has been married 20 years, and during that time, one spouse stayed home to take care of the children while the other spouse worked and earned a high income. In this case, the court may decide that the stay-at-home spouse deserves a larger share of the marital property, including the house, to compensate for sacrifices they made to support the family. Now, an interesting twist is, what if there's only one of the spouse's names on the deed? If only one spouse's name is on the deed, that spouse is considered the sole owner of the property. However, if the other spouse can prove they contributed to the property's purchase or maintenance, they may still have a claim to a portion of the property. Now, then there's prenuptial agreements. If there's a prenuptial agreement, the agreement will typically dictate how property should be divided in the event of a divorce. As long as the agreement is valid and enforceable, the court will usually abide by its terms. So if you're going to divide up the house in addition to the other assets and things, I always recommend consulting with an experienced divorce attorney. An attorney can help you understand your rights and options under the law and can work with you to negotiate a fair and reasonable division of the property. I'd like to thank you for listening to today's episode of Breaking Ties, Destination Divorce. If you have any questions, my contact information's in the description. I'm always happy to help. And keep in mind that divorce is not the end of your story. It is the start of your next great chapter. We'll see you next time. Take care. Welcome to the Breaking Ties Destination Divorce podcast. Today, we'll be discussing an important topic that affects many individuals going through a divorce. Who pays for the attorney when getting a divorce? Divorce is never easy. It's a difficult and emotional time for everyone involved. One of the biggest concerns for many people getting divorced is how much will it cost and who will pay for the legal fees? The answer to this question depends on several factors, including the type of divorce, the complexity of the case, and the financial resources of each party. In general, each spouse is responsible for paying their own attorney fees in a divorce case. However, there are some exceptions to this rule. If one spouse is the primary earner and the other spouse has little or no income, the court may order the higher earning spouse to pay for the other spouse's attorney fees. This is known as attorney fees and costs, or attorney fees and costs award. Another factor that can affect who pays for attorneys in the divorce is the type of divorce. In a collaborative divorce, both parties agree to work together with their attorneys to reach a settlement. The cost of the attorneys is shared equally by both parties. In a mediated divorce, a neutral third party works with both parties to reach a settlement. The cost of the mediator is shared by both parties, but each party is responsible for paying their own attorney fees. Finally, in a contested divorce, where the two parties are unable to reach an agreement, each party is responsible for paying their own attorney fees. The court may also order one party to pay the other party's attorney fees if it is determined that one party was acting in bad faith or was being unreasonable in their demands. It's important to note that the cost of the attorneys can vary widely depending on the complexity of the case and the hourly rate of the attorney. More complex the case, the more expensive the attorney fees will be. This is why it's important to choose an attorney who specializes in family law and has experience with divorce cases. In some cases, there may be alternative options for obtaining legal representation in a divorce case. Some legal aid organizations and pro bono law firms offer free or reduced legal cost services for individuals who cannot afford an attorney. In summary, who pays for the attorney in a divorce case depends on the type of divorce, the complexity of the case, and the financial resources of each party. In most cases, each party is responsible for their own attorney fees. However, if one spouse has little or no income, the court may order the higher earning spouse to pay for the spouse's attorney fees. Thank you for listening to this episode of Breaking Ties, Destination Divorce podcast. If you have any questions, my contact information is in the description. Feel free to reach out. Now, remember that divorce is not the end of your story. It is the start of your next great chapter. Take care.
We want to thank you for listening to this episode of Breaking Ties, Destination Divorce with Mike Fulkerson. For questions, please reach out to Mike via email in the description or give him a shout at 630-444-1410. Remember to subscribe, like, and follow.